Now, do I cry? I cry. I've cried. But I don't cry in front of people. I try not to. And I don't like grown men crying in front of me. Women, I can tolerate it more. I don't like grown men crying in front of me like that. I don't like it. I don't like it. And if one of my homeboys cries in front of me, it better be a serious crisis. Someone better dead, sickness, or something horrible better have happened before they do that. Losing a boxing match? I don't know. Despite me saying all that, old habits die hard. They die hard. If I had a son, there's no way I'm going to be letting him be an emotional wreck around me. I just wouldn't let it happen. I wouldn't let it happen. Like, I can give you some stories, man, about where I grew up. A densely populated West Indian area. It's how it was then. It's changed a little. There's more Africans and Eastern Europeans there now. But I remember one kid coming home from jail, and it appeared that he was losing his mind, talking a whole load of wacky craziness, until his Jamaican uncle. His uncle is actually from London, but he spent a lot of time in Jamaica. And he's not to be played with, his uncle. Let's just say that. He's just not to be played with. Like, you know. This dude was going off the rails. Came out of jail, no job. Accommodation situation wasn't good. In and out of institutions and talking this craziness. I don't know what happened to him in jail. Jail's not the place to go. Do you know, this was nearly 30 years ago that I'm talking this kid. And his uncle came and started just, stop talk, blood clot foolishness, and straighten up himself, and within months, I see him driving, talking normally, and I see him up to last year. Same thing. Just everything sorted out. He's got kids and everything. That's hood therapy. Now, it doesn't work all the time because certain people couldn't take that. But that's the environment I grew up in. He shocked him back into shape. So, that might not be in Freud's book or in the latest mental health journal. It might not be in there, I admit. Now I want to touch on this topic of Shakur Stevenson crying after he got the silver medal. You know, there could be a lot of factors. He was away from home from a long time as a young dude. Could have been a little homesick. The Olympics come every 4 years, and like, he must have built such a body of expectation that, yo, I'm coming for this gold, man. I'm coming for this gold. And he had Floyd, obviously Floyd signed. Some people blamed Floyd for him losing the final. Oh, it must have put too much pressure on him. Look, man, look. This is boxing. This isn't tiddlywinks. Yeah? This isn't tiddlywinks. If you think you can box and not take pressure into the ring, then you're a dumbass. And that means you know nothing about the components of going in the ring and fighting. Yeah? Like Hatman said, he was privileged. He got a silver medal. He was courted by Floyd. He still got the deal. What are you guys talking about? Now, anyone can lose a fight. He lost the fight. That's just how that goes. Someone has to lose. Someone has to win. Floyd put him off. I didn't see the fight, but apparently it was very competitive, and he nearly won. So what would you guys have said if he got the decision? The same thing. You guys are so stupid. It's absolutely ridiculous. And this is what I'm talking about, this world here. Everything has to be blamed on someone. I mean, you got to blame someone. So it's Floyd's fault now. You're absolutely ridiculous. This is this pussified generation of men. Oh, yeah, Floyd did to him. You couldn't look on it the other way and say, well, maybe this is good inspiration. Perhaps an added incentive to perform. No, not you. It's like when Floyd says easy work, easy work, easy work. A lot of fighters take that on board and they think, oh yeah, well yeah, it's easy work, you know. And then, you know, they cut corners, don't test themselves against the best fighters and put mediocre performances in. That's because, yeah, he said easy work. Yeah, he said easy work. He says easy work a lot. Yeah. But it's easy to run with that one. How about when he says hard work, dedication? You don't really like that one too much. That's the thing. That's the thing. Your brain has left and right hemispheres. One to deal with practical things, one to deal with creative things. Use your brain. Think critically. Hatman was coming from an old school perspective, and he's a little younger than me. But the thing, let's talk about boxing, yeah? Some fighters fight on emotion and adrenaline. Deontay Wilder does to a degree. But as you saw against Chris Arreola when his hand was busted, he had to be disciplined and fight behind his jab. When you saw him fighting Du Harpers, both his feet were coming off the ground when he was throwing shots. I think sometimes, as much as I like him, his technique could have led to why his hands are busting up like that. And plus, he probably punches a little too hard for his frame. But when you go in the ring, and this is me psychoanalyzing it. I've never been a pro or amateur boxer. I've sparred, but that's about it. When you fight in the ring, decision making is one of the biggest obstacles you're going to come up against. It's all about decision making. You're going to attack, you're going to defend, you're going to jab. It's all decision making, and often it's the guy who has the coolest head is going to prevail. Barry McGuigan said, when you box for the first 8 rounds, it's all on technique, and then after 8 rounds, it becomes a fight. And the guy who can keep it all together, keep what he's learned in the gym all together, and bring more of that out, is going to win more often than not. So emotions have to be kept in check. If you watch martial arts, I'm not talking about the films, but you can even watch the films, a lot of them, the characters are emotionless, but I'm talking about when you see man breaking bricks and stuff, you can see them holding the emotion in, harnessing it, so when it releases, it's explosive. Karate in Japan and stuff, right? It's emotionless. Them guys are emotionless. The Japanese kamikaze pilots, emotionless, cold motherfuckers. Yeah. I remember seeing Lennox Lewis get knocked out by Hassim Rahman in South Africa. And it was a strange evening. Lennox lost his titles. And I'm telling you, man, there was a lot of philosophy and psychology going on in that match. That's what I took from it, man. The aftermath of it. Because Lennox got off the canvas after he was knocked out for 10 on the canvas, got up, and he had this grin on his face. Like when Harry Carpenter was talking, he was smiling. Not like happy, but, he wasn't really emotional about it. And he said, yeah, I'll get my title back. I'm sure this guy can't beat me in a rematch. And I remember Harry Carpenter in the commentary position saying, absolutely astounding reaction from Lennox Lewis. He's just lost his title. And he's smiling and so nonchalant. With great English accent. And John Conte was in the studio with Harry Carpenter, a Liverpudlian, former world champion, really good fighter, very intelligent dude. And he started bantering with Harry about Lennox's reaction. And he brought up Rudyard Kipling, who I believe was a poet. And he said, if you can meet with triumph and disaster and treat those two impostors just the same, if you can bear to hear the truth you've spoken, twisted by knaves to make a trap for fools, or watch the things you gave your life to broken and stoop and build them up with worn out tools. And it goes into it, but it's just this particular line that John Conte quoted. Just focus on this line here. Just focus. If you can meet triumph and disaster and treat those two impostors just the same. That's what John Conte quoted. But if you listen to the poem as a whole, it's basically keeping a check on your emotions. How do you treat triumph and disaster the same? How do you greet both of these scenarios the same? How do you do that? Well, you definitely need a check on your emotions if you're going to do that. Joe Louis, apart from the right cross and that dangerous left jab and them short punches, one of his traits was his poker face demeanor. Joe didn't give nothing away. Nothing at all. Opponents spoke of Joe's icy stare. They didn't know whether Joe was in trouble or if he was coming to bring the destruction to them. No emotions at all. Joe was told by his management, if he wanted to get a title shot, you can't consort with white women in public, you can't gloat over white opponents, you can't do no big celebrations after you win, especially if you've just bested a Caucasian opponent. Joe grew up as a sharecropper in abject poverty. Joe lost all his money. The government took all his money after he'd done so much to help the war effort. They used him as a political pawn in the war efforts. And the Germans did the same to Max Schmeling. Do you know America eventually gave Max Schmeling a job in Coca-Cola, and left Joe Louis with the big tax lien, which a drug dealer eventually paid off. Joe actually used his own purse money to fund some of the provisions for the soldiers in his unit. His own purse money. You never see Joe crying about it. Oh, I've been so hard done by. You never heard Joe moaning one bit. I'm not saying that's admirable. Maybe he should have done. But I'm just saying, in the ring, he was ice cold and he didn't cry about things. And back in the day, people didn't really cry about things like that as much as they do today. I'm not saying that's better or worse. I'm not making a judgment on Shakur crying or what bearing it will have on his career. I'm not, because I'm not really sure, to be honest, how relevant it is. I saw a Ukrainian female boxer in the Olympics. Was it against Nicola Adams or Clarissa Shields? I can't remember. But at the end of the first round, her coach pushed her up in her face, and she was a girl, you know what I mean? Push her up in her face. And then she went back out. You think that girl cried to her mum, oh my God, put you in my face? No. Because them girls are a little different to westernized girls. They're not the same. It's two different girls, two different mentalities, two different worlds. I didn't see my dad cry. My dad was a very uncompromising man, you know. But he grew up in a tough environment, you know, where they couldn't get hold of certain nutritions or certain medicinal products. And he used to pass out ringworms and, you know, bad illnesses like bad wind in his stomach and stuff like that. And his aunt once told my mum that he used to get brutalized by his parents. Severe beatings. He was singled out because he used to stand up to them when it was getting too oppressive. And he paid the penalty. So that's why I got into boxing, and that's why I used to fight. And, you know, that's my old man. Catching a bad beating in West Indian family life is not uncommon, and it was even worse back in the day. Way worse. I saw Dream Chasing Boxing respond, and I'm not sure what Hatman can do if there was racially motivated comments. Maybe he can block the people who made them or erase the comments, but sometimes you can't do much. He's got a high subscriber base and a high view count on videos, so it's hard to catch everything. But you know, hopefully, if they are being disrespectful like that, you know, clean it up. But that's at Hatman's discretion. I can't tell him how to run his channel. But I was a bit shocked. Dream Chaser responded in kind, only because I believe you're a military man. And I've never been in the military, but you have to be cold. You have to be relatively cold to be a military man. And if we're talking about leadership in the military, obviously you've got generals, colonels, and whatever rank. But Obama is the top dude. Obama oversees the destruction of anyone he sees as a threat to America's way of life or the world's way of life. The Western world's way of life. And he would destroy communities, children, dads, mothers. And he's not just some smiley guy you see in the camera. He's not some passive dude in a suit, easy-go-lucky. No. You don't get in the presidency unless you have what it takes. He's cold. He is cold. Obama would kill who he has to kill, go back, kiss his wife, kiss his kids, play with his kids. Then the next morning, he's back in office. What's the agenda today, fellas? Business as usual. Yeah, that's your president. The real gangster. No battle rap or street shit. Yeah, Obama's cold. He has to be cold. He's not in charge of the Boy Scouts. He's in charge of America, bruh. America. You know how much terror threats America get every day? You know how much countries dislike America? Any pussyhole can lead these countries, man. Let me tell you that now. A lot of us, and I'm including myself, we really don't know what it takes to be in leadership of these major countries. England, America, China's becoming an emerging force. Any of them. We really don't know what it takes. If we saw what things they had to make happen and live with the consequences and how many people suffered, we'd be like, oh. But we don't see shit, bro. We don't see shit. And before you say, I didn't know they was that evil and this and that, how do you the fuck do you think you're getting high-speed broadband and cheap clothes from the shop? How do you think you're getting all these things here? These are cult manipulating people controlling the fucking shit here, man. How do you think you're getting these souped-up cars you're driving and iPhones and this and that? It takes resources. It takes labor, bargaining, dealing, wheeling, crime, thuggery, whatever it takes. Whatever it takes. It takes a toll on the environment. They're talking about fracking shit out of the ground now to keep the game running. Without oil, this whole shit collapses. Little kids in undeveloped parts of the world still in sweatshops so you can get them goods you're getting off the high road or wherever you are. Yeah. Doing farmers out of their produce from undeveloped countries. That's why you see fair trade on some of the labels to try and address the disproportionate one-sided relationship in terms of who gets and who doesn't. You gotta be cold. Most of us just consume and use, and we know nothing about the people who lead and control what products and bring us the products what we use. We know nothing about these people, and they're not like you and I. Trust me, they're not like you and I. You think these people are gonna argue about who's the best boxer, black or white? No, time for that, bro. They ain't got time for that. That's bitch shit. I'm including myself in it because I'm here in the YTBC. Rat. So I ain't trying to detach myself from you guys. Say what you like. Say what you like. You know, I consider myself spoiled in the westernized country that I'm in. I consider myself spoiled. I don't equate my struggle with my ancestors who were slaves. I don't. I think it's an insult to them. I don't. There's me needing to lose all this blubber because I've got all these foods to choose from and sit down, flick through my remote control or internet, you know, work, come home and do what I like. Do what I like. But somebody has to go without for us to have so much. Now, we don't see them people going without, so it's easy for us to consume, use. But if we saw how the sufferation had to take place for the Western world to develop and be what it is now, maybe we'd have a different take. Maybe we'd have a different take on it. It's kind of like when meat eaters actually see a live animal getting killed and they have to eat it. They're like, I can't eat that. Trust me. The people who run this shit here are cold, emotionless motherfuckers. You tell me when you've seen a world leader cry in public after all the destruction his government and military have caused. Tell me when you've seen it. Tony Blair, when the mothers of the soldiers were in a studio audience with him, showed no remorse at all. He barely apologized. He kind of gave a half apology. Showed no remorse at all. When they started slow hand clapping him, he had this little quarter grin on his face, asking what Jesus would do in this situation. That's how fucking detached he is from human suffering and emotion. Just the fact alone that he would send and deploy your kid out there in some dangerous region of the world to potentially get killed. But he's not putting his own son out there. He's got a son. He wouldn't do it to his own son. He'd do it to yours. The English football team had this footballer named Paul Gascoigne. Strange dude. But so fucking gifted. White dude. Fucking gifted. Right? He wasn't cut up. He was a thick, meaty dude. And he'd just glide past defenders and he had some skills. His shots were just like... He was bad, man. Paul Gascoigne was a bad footballer. I don't give a fuck what no one said. And I remember when England was in the World Cup. I think it was against... Was it the semi-final against Germany or the quarter-final? And he got booked. And it meant he was going to miss the final or the semi-final. And he just fucking lost it. You saw him losing it on the pitch. I don't know if he actually cried, but he was so close to crying. And like Gary Lineker, I think, was the skipper. He looked at Bobby Robson, the manager, on the touchline and said, yo, keep an eye on him, you know what I mean? Because Paul is fragile. But Gascoigne had a lot of issues from when he was a child. He saw some crazy shit when he was a child. And he went from being possibly the most talented British footballer to this drunk alcoholic who's still making headlines, but all for the wrong reasons. And he's just an old dude who cuts a sad figure, and that's just how that is. So he played on emotion. His genius came about from emotion and improvisation, which often is quite an emotive thing. Like some of the goals he scored, just pure improvisation. But he was a Tottenham player. That's where he made his name as a league player. And I remember that cup final when he ruined his career, when he made that tackle on Gary Charles. Stupid tackle. Nearly fucked up Gary Charles. But he injured himself. I can't remember what the injury was. It took him a long time to get back in the game, but he was never the same after that tackle. He was never the same. There was still some flashes of genius after, but he destroyed his career with an irrational tackle. Emotional, very emotional, Gascoigne. Young buck from G Unit. 50's cold. 50 is a cold dude. Very cold. I don't know how gangster is. Gangster doesn't mean, and cold doesn't really necessarily go hand in hand. But 50's cold. He recorded the phone call between them, and you saw Buck.
The nigga just get confused.
And 50 put it out there. And Buck has a lot of emotional issues. Substance abuse issues. Just the other day he was in some shit which wasn't in his favour. And it's just a constant thing. When he stabbed the guy who attacked Dre. They say when Buck buys weed, he don't just buy a good portion. Buck buys fucking pounds of weed just to personally smoke. And if he's on holiday, he'll go to the duty-free shops, which are really expensive, and, you know, buy stuff that he's going to take on holiday. And a lot of silly stuff, man. And that's how his shit unraveled in a massive emotion. Then we had Duke McKenzie in the 80s, a British boxer, three-time world champion, free weight world champion Duke McKenzie. And I can't remember what title it was. He beat this Filipino named Rolando Bohol. And Bohol was a strong-looking dude, strong-looking squat. And McKenzie outpointed him. A very disciplined performance. Then Harry Carpenter started interviewing him, and this guy just broke down into tears, just crying. Harry Carpenter asked him, "What's the matter, Duke? What's the matter?" He said, "I thought he was going to knock me out. And the guy didn't hurt him badly once in the fight. But that's what he was carrying with him, I guess, through the training camp and through the fight. Probably carrying it through the training camp and through the fight was just too much, and he just broke down. I would say Oliver McCall is the epitome of the discussion. Like, he fought Lennox Lewis twice. The first time, he was crying. He looked like he was crying on the route to the ring. But it worked for him this time. He knocked Lewis out in the second, aided by some of Lewis's coach, Pepe Correa's terrible advice. He knocked Lewis out. He was crying when he come towards the ring. Second fight, he had a nervous breakdown and was crying again. I don't know if he was crying on the ring walk this time, but after a few rounds, he had a nervous breakdown and was crying while the fight was actually in progress. It was the weirdest spectacle I've ever seen. The first time around, he cried as he was coming towards the ring. When he got into the ring, he was all business and he was ready to fight. And it wasn't the fluke punch that people say it was. You know, he threw a couple of bombs in the first round. He didn't quite get the range. And he looked dangerous. Yeah? And he got rid of Lennox in the second. So in the first fight, he cried, but he had his emotions under control, even though he was crying. Second time around, he cried again. But this time he broke. It was a breakdown, and, you know, he got DQ'd. Weirdest thing. That's the only time he's been stopped. So I've got no problem with the crying in public. I think if you've just if you've got good people around you and you've got yourself in check, and your life isn't spiraling out of control like Adrian Broner, then I suppose it's all good. But going back to Oliver McCall, the emotion seemed to work for him in the first fight, in the second not so much. Was Muhammad Ali emotional? Like when he was chasing Liston around in Liston's gym and all types of madness. Was that emotional? Was some of his outbursts emotional? Do you have to cry to be emotional? That's another component to the discussion. Was Ali emotional, or was he a master of kidology? Because there's rumors that after he was running up on Liston's gym and he done some other madness at a press conference situation, that his blood pressure went high up. But were they lying? Was that kidology? Irrationality is a problem. Being over emotional is a problem. But emotion in itself is not a problem. It's just like anything else if you have too much of it. If you eat too much tortilla chips, drink too much beer, smoke too much herb, eat too much of whatever food, it becomes bad for you. But I still believe Hatman made some good points about being able to keep your emotions in check and being cool, calculated. I think he still made some valid points there, in my opinion. But a lot of people don't agree. It would be nice if we had disagreements without people going off the edge. I would say that, though. I'll just end it there. Peace.